Hi, ladies and gentlemen, we are so close, baby. I'm so excited. Oh man, I love the Borderlands. I hope I don't get disappointed. I'm so excited for the game. Forgive me. Get it, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. We are going to be talking about what class I'm going to be taking into Wonderland, and I would hope you guys would tell me yours. We're going to be talking about synergies and why we're betting on certain things, and we could all be fundamentally wrong because we have not played the game yet. We also don't know all the variables that are going to be engaged with the community. A lot of the content creators, which makes sense, who got early access, we're not talking about the legendaries they've seen, the class mods that they've seen, which of course to me, I'm like, I just want to see one so I know what kind of the scale is. All right. Anyways, I got crazy eyes, forgive me. But ladies and gentlemen, go get some coffee, go get something nice to drink, because we're just going to be sitting back talking about some skill tree synergy. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the characters that I'm going to be taking into the thing. So, with Wonderlands comes melee weapons and spells, which are kind of just like grenades, and melee weapons are actually pretty different. But let me explain something that you may not know exactly about spells. Also, these are not going to be too many spoilers, so much as functional things that it's best to know ahead of time, if that makes any sense. Although maybe it's spoilers, I don't know what you determine to be spoilers. But essentially, how spells work in Wonderland is there are like 5 to maybe 6, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 8. I think it's maybe 8. 8 spell templates. So it's kind of good and a little bit disappointing, but essentially there are versions of spells. So there's a spell that's basically like Flack's Bloodwing kind of bird, where you just summon a bunch of birds, or one bird, or a bird that spews other birds. So that's what it does. So it's always going to be a bird that goes directly forward, but the fact that it could maybe have a singularity tied to it, the fact that maybe it's fire, it's cryo, it spawns other tiny birds, maybe it spawns twice, maybe you get 2 activations of it. That's where the spell meta thing is. Also, there's variability on your spells. We'll talk about one thing at a time. Okay, so yeah, that's one of the templates that a spell can have. There's also Hydra. Hydra is a little snake that pops out of the ground, and the variability that could exist there is you have 2 Hydras, you have 3 Hydras, you have a Hydra that shoots AoE, explosive, whatever. You could have a Hydra that does a certain spell, and these are the kind of the MacGyver-y weird things that legendaries could potentially hold. But there's a lot. But spells, similar to melee weapons, can also have a based random substats kind of applied to them. Meaning, a spell could come with decrease on action skill or spell cooldown, okay? The spell could also come with, based on the vendor and whatnot, maybe things like being able to cast a spell multiple times. So there is, yes, only like 4 types of spells, but they have crazy variability on, like, you could get a Hydra that is cryo. You could get a Hydra, maybe, I'm pulling shit out of my ass right now, you could get a Hydra that's fire and ice, that 2 heads just fire in different types of elements. Maybe. you could, this is confirmed, you could get a Hydra, instead of 1 snake, it's 2 or 3 or whatever, or fucking 6, I think I've seen at some point. You can get stacked and get crazy. So that's the variability of magic, which is exciting, especially considering they could add another type of magic, and have like even crazier variability in what it could eventually mutate into, because that's the best way to kind of think about it, is every spell is a spell, but it can mutate into 1,000 different things, I guess. Increasing cooldown, giving you multiple hits, doing different things, all that kind of stuff. Another type of spell, just to round things off, is a giant globe / AoE globe that you put around yourself that can do AoE damage to enemies, like Fire Dot, essentially, for anyone who's in the giant dome, as well as probably things like heal you, maybe do buff your damage, stuff like that, give you like a barrier, an actual shield or a dome. So yeah, those are all the things, the variability of magic. Melee is kind of in a similar camp. You get a melee weapon with stats, so there's like, your melee damage, melee attack speed, which is relevant to certain classes, and then of course a bunch of other tiny things. And then in the gray box below it shows the like kind of variability that you got on it, which is like increased damage. Maybe gives you, this is huge, gives you the ability to shave off spell cooldown based on a second percentage. or gives you the ability to shave off an action ability based on a percentage. So if you're able to get to an enemy, hit them, it's going to take 1 second off of your spells. And I've literally seen in practice a person run up to an enemy, melee hitting them like crazy, and just taking away chunks off of their spell cooldown, and then just like laying a bunch of magic onto an enemy point blank, and then doing the same thing over again. Basically just using their melee weapon as a stat stick to get them to their spell activation sooner. So yeah, that's the variability thing. So there's like a template for both spells and melee weapons, and then there's like stats below it that alter the way that the base template reacts and does things, giving it buffs, giving it certain bonuses and different ways to apply it, stuff like that. So that's the variability of both melee and magic that hopefully makes some more sense now. So those are the things that we need to consider. Essentially, in Wonderlands, we're going to have a ton of magic spells to deal with. So, and also melee weapons. I am a little bit more attracted to the magic because we've never had magic, at least to this extent, within Borderlands. We've had like ways to kind of create magic-like spectacles, like with Kunai or like with Moe's. Moe's probably the best example of like just an absolute show of like a bunch of Tesla coil bulbs just ripping enemies up, and Moe standing in the center of it like a chaotic war god. Anyways, so because I want to do that, I want to engage with magic the most, we are going with the Graveborn. The Graveborn, not the Spellshot, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the reason why we're going with Graveborn, which everybody knew this, I talked about like how I looked at every other class, like how they could help my Graveborn be better, okay? Not like they're good by themselves, forgive me. I was excited about the Graveborn, specifically because the Graveborn is both a companion class slash a summoner and just a really good utility class. Like he seems to have a lot, and I hope they don't nerf him. I hope they keep him in this kind of like overlord-like position. Anyways, his class feat to me is by far the most interesting and fun. Whether it's useful, companions, and this is something that this is like one of the things that if I see it early on, then I have a lot of confidence for the rest of my experience. But if companions have always been shit in Borderlands, always. Like only recently in Borderlands 3 that they kind of make them viable, kind of. But yeah, so if we get into Wonderlands and the companions are shit, I'm gonna be like, oh god, maybe I was too hopeful. But if we get in there and companions actually have a bite and can actually be useful and like worth investing heavily in, then I'm gonna be way happy. And I think it's gonna set a good tone for the rest of the game. Regardless, the Demi-Lich, it just seems like a fun companion. The fact that you have this floating skull that's just going to randomly start throwing dark magic damage that's at a range, meaning it's probably going to hit people almost all the time, because it also heat seeks. And all that we have to do to detonate him doing that is cast a spell. Okay. Okay, also, there's ways to have him do more just by activating more spells. Anyways, also, he starts off with an interesting ability, the Dire Sacrifice, which essentially, Reaper of Bones, I believe. Yeah, Reaper of Bones. Reaper of Bones, albeit seeming like it's gonna kill you, is also just really cool damage-wise. It's also not too complicated. It's not like with the Stabomancer, I'm a little worried that that's gonna be messy at the start. Like, oh my god, look at my blades kind of doing some good damage. I don't really get a good melee weapon. Ah, shit. Also, enemies keep fucking walking out of its AoE. It's fucking annoying to have to keep replacing it everywhere, and that stops me from shooting. So I'm worried there's going to be some finagliness until you actually invest enough into Stabomancer to get that hitting hard. Anywho, but the Reaper of Bones seems like as long as you got a gun, it's just going to be increasing your gun damage and also giving you the ability to do dark magic damage, which is going to be giving you the ability to synthetically heal yourself because dark magic damage is lifesteal. And yeah, also pretty early on, there's ways to kind of mitigate your absolutely getting wrecked by your self-inflicted torture, bleed, or Reaper of Bones. Also, there's stuff like at the very beginning, the first skills that you attain, which is the Fate Maker deals bonus damage for every companion he has. Also, companion respawn time is increased. It's also 3 points, so it's cheap. But the fact that you're getting more damage to everything, melee damage, spell damage, gun damage, just for having more damage sources is insane. It's like, yes. Also, kill skill that decreases spell cooldown. So this is something that we're going to see throughout the course of his skill tree, but essentially he is seemingly like he's really queued up for bonus damage as well as specific spell synergy, amplification, or fixing. So the Spellshot has many problems. Almost all of them are solved by the Graveborn. Like all of them almost, which is awesome. Anyways. Yeah, so you just have a synthetic damage buff with your dark magic, which is going to be super easy to apply. We'll talk about that in a minute. Also stuff like this. Kill skill. Companions deal bonus magic damage. Now again, the one thing that I'm just so curious about is the one companion spell that we have, which is the Hydra, or maybe the Bloodwing. The Bloodwing could also maybe be considered a companion, albeit it's like a short-lived companion. The Hydra, if it's considered a companion, could be a lot of fun. But yes, we are going to summon forth this Hydra. Hopefully, it's considered a companion. Now, there is hope for the Hydra to be considered a companion because the Dark Hydra, well, this one in the skill tree specifically says it's considered a Dark Hydra companion. So maybe the Hydra will be considered just a spell and not a Hydra companion. Regardless, this synergizes perfectly within the kit. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, just the idea that you're going to be getting more base damage. You're also going to get your companions dealing high damage. The reason why this is exciting, sorry, I should explain. Say if you do have a Hydra companion that's fire-based. Awesome. So you use a spell, you summon forth this spell Hydra. If it's considered a companion, which I think there's a chance that it would be, now it's doing dark magic damage on top of other damage, or on top of the fire damage. Now, there's other things that like hint at that being the case, of like your companions being able to do whatever they do, but then bonus dark magic damage on top of that. And not only are we just going to be able to make dark magic damage better, but the one question in the air is, does dark magic do what it does for us, or does it do what it does for our companions? So either or is a win. So say if an enemy, your companion, is dealing dark magic damage, whenever you hit an enemy with dark magic, it has the passive life leech effect. So you know how cryo has its effect, poison has its effect. Well, dark magic has the effect of healing the user that it's shooting these like dark blood magic at. So that's awesome, but I wonder if our companions are going to be dealing damage, if they're going to be healing, which is just going to make our companions infinitely more tanky, which is awesome. Or if it just heals us, or if it heals anybody who needs healing, if it just creates like a little tether of blood that kind of goes to whomever is weak. Regardless, either or is a win. It's just one that if it healed everybody for all of the dark magic damage being generated, it would make you heal all the time. Anyways, there's going to be ways for us to do that anyway, so as long as we keep shooting, as long as we keep casting spells, we should be healing with dark magic. Anyways, and then we got this one, baby. When the Fate Maker deals spell damage, we also deal bonus dark magic damage. We win. We're winning all the time. That's how it feels like when I'm reading the skill tree. It's just like, I'm winning, this is a win, this synergizes with this, it wins in this way. If you're playing melee, it doesn't win that much. Well, maybe, because it can give you healing, and that can be kind of good. But anyways, kill skill. This is the big pooba that kind of makes everything work really, really well. Kill skill. If you just get one enemy dead, there's a chance, small chance, for you to summon a Hydra. If you invest higher in the skill tree, or skill, you'll get higher chance of getting a Hydra summon. But these dark Hydras will do dark magic damage to nearby enemies. These also are considered a dark Hydra companion. So if we just get 2 kills, we're gonna have the max version of this, which is based on the Fate Maker's companions. We'll do bonus damage to everything. That's gun damage, that's melee damage, that's spell damage, that's everything. So everything, like Dark Hydra just made everything synergize spectacularly. Already there was a lot of cool things happening within the skill tree. Also increases max health and spell damage. Just if we get a kill skill, we're just getting more of that. Also, this effect can be stacked, so we're gonna be able to do even more damage and also even have more survivability. Golly. When the Demi-Lich casts Hellblast, which is basically whenever we activate a spell, our Demi-Lich can throw another like version of a spell, there's a chance for him to cast it again after a brief delay. Now, I have no idea if this stacks or maintains the same queue of what we did. Let me explain. So with this, it essentially is giving us bonus damage. So say if we cast a spell, and say if we have some of the late game hand magic, where we keep snapping our fingers and we have like 5 detonations of a spell. Say if we have those 5 detonations, and there's a chance for our Damulich every single time we cast a spell for him to cast another version of the spell, so we're already doubling our kind of output. Does this double it again? Well, no, he says there's a chance, so it could. But I'm curious is, if we have a spell that like we cast 8 spells in one go, does that cause our Damulich to keep a queue of like, okay, chance of detonating, hit. Okay, chance of detonating, didn't hit, hit. Does that make our Damulich just kind of output one at a time, or does it basically culminate in us doing damage, our Damulich casting a bunch of spells, and then like a few seconds later it just goes and just like shoots out a bunch of excess other Death Lich casts? Hellblast is what it's called. That's insane. I don't know. Regardless, even if it does do that, it's still cool, but it's something that I'm not sure how it'll work in practice. Anyways, we need to hurry up here. Fate Maker deals more damage dealt. That one's kind of only if you're kind of getting killed, but sure, you'll be able to drop whatever's in front of you. Again, another one, Fate Maker deals more spell damage. There's a chance to create an explosion, dealing AoE damage. So again, when we cast spells, when we deal spell damage, we're going to be able to do that. This one's weird because it says dealing spell damage, we have to create like a Nova essentially, but it's scaled off of ability damage. Okay. Also, Fate Maker deals spell damage. That could actually be pretty good with our Hydra. You just summon a Hydra spell, and he's going to keep plucking at an enemy, and each time those little plucks could hit hard, but again, that's not going to really be hit hard because it's going to scale off of our ability damage, but regardless, it could apply a lot of status to other enemies. Regardless, the big pooba also is this. Whenever we cast a spell, we detonate a kill skill. And there's a lot of kill skills in here, so you don't even need to get 1 kill to get the ball rolling. You just need to have a spell that at least casts 3 times, and then you'll be good to go. Now, I will say, as much as I like Reaper of Bones, I don't like the idea that it leaves me like almost dead 100% all the time. I don't like that aspect of it. And also, it's not very flashy. It's good. I think it'd be like a good starter ability. If you have a boss, activate this and just start chewing them up, and you'll be good to go. But I don't really like its like effect. It doesn't look flashy, and again, like I said, I want to play a mage. I want to actually experience what the magic is, the variability of spells, and have them cranked to the highest possible point. So my second class that I will be investing in, of course, is the Spellshot, but I will not be investing into the capstone, only into the basic abilities, which we'll probably be able to get at launch, if it's anything like other Borderlands, to tier 3. So let's look into see why I would want to use a special class as my secondary class. Well, first of all, their class feat is really, really good. It's a stack bot character, our class. Essentially, Spellweaver is a stackable thing that is going to increase your damage. You can gain stacks of spellweaving by casting spells or reloading your weapon. So if there's a weapon that can have a quick reload speed or shoots once and then has to reload, pretty valuable. But yes, spellweaving increases spell damage. Simple as that. So by casting spells, specifically spells that have a capacity, so like 5 casts in one spell, we're gonna be able to gain stacks of spell weaving and not have to sit there and shoot, reload, and do it that weird way. Anyways, spell weaving stacks automatically decay, so after a short time. Casting repeating spells has a chance to award additional spell weaving stacks with each repetitive cast. So what this means is and this is kind of really how I think the Spellshot is supposed to be formatted, especially with their skills. So with your dominant spell hand, I think you're going to want to have multicast. So a spell that has like 5 casts, 3 casts, something. So you're going to be able to build stacks with that. Now, this is the other reason why I really, really wanted this character and why I chose them. I don't like a lot of the action skills themselves are not really exciting to me. Yeah, like I kind of want something similar to like Zane's Cannon or something like that. But that doesn't exist really. The only thing that kind of excites me is the Stabomancer's kind of Ghost Blade. But from what I see gameplay wise, it doesn't look like enemies are able to stay in the area. Regardless, I'm just going to choose this one as my action skill for the end game, I think, which is the Spellshot basically can equip another spell into their action slot ability. Now, it is yet to be seen how this scales. So what I mean by that is this considered an action ability now that we've put a spell in there, or is it also considered a spell? If it is, then you're going to be able to dip into 2 types of cooldown but I would bet this is just going to be an action skill cooldown buffer thing, because it's considered an action skill. So, needless to say, that we also don't know if this has power locked behind it. So it could also be very, very valuable in a different way. So say if this thing, no matter what spell you put on here, always has 30-second cooldown, no matter what. If that is the case, then that's a huge bit of value. And say if you have action skill cooldown things, then it will always, decrease the action skill furthermore. That's awesome. But anyways, this is how I think that they're kind of trying to aim you to be building your Spellweaver, is essentially have one spell that's just quick casts, get stacks, build up your power, and then to have your action skill spell drop this huge nuke. So you could have, to me, what I'm thinking I'm going to go is just any spell that just instance AoE hits damage, kind of just like snapping my fingers and blowing up an area. I seen it in the trailer, looked really cool. And then I'll have a Hydra on my offhand, or I'll swap the quick cast ability from my Hydra, and I'll summon a Meteor. But I don't know if I want the Meteor, although that is kind of what I think they're alluding to, is you build a lot of stacks with your left hand, and then you use your action skill and like cast a giant meteor that just devastates the whole area. And because you still have a spell in your hand that cools down quick and gives you a lot of casts of it, you should be good. Anyways, let's go into more about what I'll build with this when it comes to reason why I think they synergize so well. First of all, one of the first perks that we're going to be able to dip into this, well, not really, because we're going to go Ghostborn first or Graveborn first. God. But one of the problems that we're going to be facing with a Graveborn and a Spellshot is the fact that we're doing a lot of spell damage, amplify damage, and dark magic damage, and some kill skill weirdness. But we're not going to, our guns might lag behind, so we're going to have a lot of investment in our in our spells, spell damage, all that stuff being ramped up, but maybe our bullets are going to be weak. But then there's this, Magic Bullet. A portion of all bonuses that the Fate Makers receive to spell damage is applied to their guns. I could totally see there being bonus spell damage on your cooldown or your action, your class mod, some other trinkets that we're able to maybe hold, like rings that are going to buff spell damage and maybe even spell cooldown and things like that. But all of that damage is fed directly back into our gun. I think about like 30%. It's not crazy. It's not going to make you like the best gun build, but it should make your guns have some impact, which is incredibly interesting. And yeah, our spells have a chance to critical hit, which just sounds better. Like your spells have a chance to critical hit. And again, I'm really curious how everything ends up sequencing, because if we look at the Graveborn again, does your Dark Hydro Companion, when he casts his like spell, does he count as a spell? And say if you have just a Hydra, he's always going to be outputting of a higher frequency. So that's pretty good. So does that count as spell damage? But what, to me, probably not. Those are ones where I'm like, they probably would vote against it. But this is something that's interesting. Whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, the Demi-Lich will cast Hellblast. Hellblast seems like it might be considered a spell, but we'll see. Again, that's just the question I'm wondering, is what is considered a spell? But if not, even if it's just our spells, critical hit chance getting increased is perfectly synergistic. Awesome. Gain increased spell cooldown rate. Love it. And this, I'm curious. Yeah, so this to me makes me feel like it's both. This answers my question, or at least leads me to believe this thing. This one says increases spell cooldown rate. Awesome. Gain increased action skill cooldown. So I feel like that means that this, if you wield this, it's considered an action skill, so it will not benefit from any sort of spell things. But that's why they have that, to give you kind of double advantage. But anyways, that's good, especially considering, regardless of what you pick, that's just going to be a nice cooldown on your action skill as well as your spells. This is interesting. This is where, again, you're able to dip into this already, which is cool. Whenever the Fate Maker gains a stack of spell weaving, they restore a portion of their ward, aka shield. So not only are we getting healing from the Graveborn, which we might not even need, or we might not even need this, but it's 1 point. I don't know why you wouldn't throw this in there. And in fact, if there's ever, oh my god, that's cool. There could be, so we'll have a lot of health and health regen from our Graveborn, but with this, we're going to be able to cast spells and instantly get back our shields. And there's always been shields in the game, especially in Borderlands 3, where they got even crazier, where at the very least they give you like a Nova, or they give you like an additional projectile that can go out. So if we're able to fill up our shield to full by casting 5 spells in succession, get our shield back, and then break a Nova like 3 times by casting spells, That could be pretty fun. And that's another reason why we're going down the skill tree. Anyways, just to warm up, gain increased fire rate for every stack that we build. Kind of cool. I would be curious. It didn't say gun fire rate, but you think fire rate would apply to guns. It could be also melee. Well, I think it's attack speed is what melee is considered. Anyways, I'm curious if fire rate could be given to our companions. Probably not, but yeah. And then this is the capstone that we're probably going to be able to get to, and just this one. The Fatemaker's Ward no longer automatically recharges, but they... Oh no, this makes it perfectly synergized, yeah. But they gain drastically increased spell damage. So ladies and gentlemen, this all perfectly synergizes because with this, we're going to be able to cast faster. We have various things that increase damage that also just give us greater healing because there's so much dark magic happening without us doing anything. Just with the Graveborn, that we're going to be able to heal a ton. So our health is going to basically be like a tanky health bar that's going to constantly be regenerating itself. But also, every time we cast an ability, we're going to be able to get our shield back. Or not an ability, sorry. Whenever we cast a spell, we're going to be getting a portion of our shield back. And if we have Glass Cannon, that means our spells are going to be doing even more damage. Also, if there is any like shield, when you break a shield, you get XYZ. We'll be able to detonate that by taking a portion of whatever the shield detonation is, and then giving it back into our shield by casting one spell, giving a chunk of it back, which is great. And again, there's also other like things within the Graveborn that decrease your spell cooldown and stuff like that. Yeah, kill skill. Whenever we activate a spell, we're going to be decreasing our spell cooldown rate. Whenever we activate a kill skill, if we have the capstone, that's whenever we activate a spell, we're decreasing the spell cooldown. It'd be cool if this was more than just spell cooldown. If it was also action ability cooldown, even just a little bit. That way we could like it would change the sequencing of what you need to do. You need to activate your action skill spell, and then you would need to cool it down by casting your other sequenced spell. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, so that is why I desperately want to go with the Graveborn and, of course, the Spellshot. As much as I do want a pet class, a like summoner, a overlord type that has like a great, superly good invested summons slash companion slash beastmaster. I wanted that so badly, but I do not think we're going to be able to attain that to the extent in which I want at launch. The reason why is because you're only awarded a certain amount of skill points within the previous games. I don't think they're going to give us more. I don't think that's going to change. I think probably 4 months from when the game launches, that's when we'll have a level cap increase, stuff like that. But yes, unfortunately, we're basically going to be only able to usually dip into the tier 3, 1 point into tier 3, and that perfectly synergizes with all the benefits that Graveborn gives and Spellshot does not have, which is basically a lessening ability for survivability and those kinds of things, which Graveborn has in spades, as well as everything else, which is fun. The other class that I was considering, and I really wanted to, but I just don't think there's enough skill points to make the class actually work, and I'm hoping I can eat my words, but I don't think that's going to be the case until we get a couple skill caps increased, aka more skill points to spend. But the Graveborn along with the Clawbringer to me was utterly exciting, because not only are you going to have synthetically 2 companions hovering overhead that are both considered like flying companions, which will be phasing through the world, aka not hindered by geometry like the mushroom most likely will be, which is like having to run up to an enemy or dodge into the ground, jump out as an enemy's running. He pops out way behind the enemy because the enemy's gonna keep running at you. Like the fact that there's enemies that are still melee based as companions is I think a huge flaw. Unless there's a way to like summon 5 goblins right in front of you that literally walk right like straight, like classic Overlord game. Anyways, but there's so much fun stuff in this skill tree, which basically just turns your wyvern into like a sentry, like a floating, hovering, orb generating, electric generating, fire generating, status monster that's going to decrease your cooldown, that's going to increase your ward, that's going to give you survivability, that's going to give you so many kill skills. Also, he's a class where a lot of the other classes don't have that many kill skills available to them, so it just kind of gets messy. But this is one of the few classes that had a lot of really cool kill skills that I just couldn't wait to actually play with and experience. So this is a class I think I'll probably pivot to later down the line. Especially, it just seems like it's a a really nice queued up plan where we're gonna get Graveborn, have a real good time climbing up the ladder, then go to Spellshot as we hybridize our class, get both of those that just synergize too well. That's also the other reason why we're choosing Spellshot, is because it's just too much synergy to not use. And then as like 4 months down the line, when we already have been farming legendaries, when we already have been farming a bunch of cool gimmicks and things, then we're gonna be like, you know what, I want to change, and maybe we actually have attained certain class mods that give us a special effect, that maybe give us another companion, or that maybe buff up our companions, that maybe do something, and then you're like, okay, I have that utility, so all I need to do is start that character. Hopefully there's a way to give like legendaries essentially to the other companions, or to your other characters, and then boom bam, now you have like this kind of companion summoner, beast tamer kind of class ready to go, revving to go, and to me it's just hella exciting. So to me it just seems like it's a good future proofing, like, oh, I'll always have something to look forward to build up and make flourish. But I think Spellshot, it's just the thing I want to engage with the most. I do actually want to spend a lot more time in this video talking about the synergies of like melee classes and stuff like that, but I just haven't had the time. There'll be time to do that in the future for sure, when we actually are in game and we're actually messing with things. A lot of this, forgive me, was me being like, if this just turns into this, it could be cool, but who's to say? Regardless, even if all of my like curious reactions / interactions that could potentially make you have a huge strength increase, if they're all wrong, there's still just base synergy that works within the Graveborn's intrinsic kit as well as the Spellshot's intrinsic kit. In fact, I don't know if there's many other classes that work so they sequence so well together. I think they're like literally made for each other, which makes sense. You're trying to create like this overlord magic companion class. This is the way, maybe, possibly, who knows, make it in a game and be like, nothing stacked with itself, it's shit. What happened? I don't know. Pain. And Spellshot seems like it'd be good, but I feel like you'd need to get good spells in order to make the Spellshot good. Whereas the Graveborn, it's kind of like, well, I mean, as long as your beast's like hellish blast is not the absolute worst, then you just casting anything will be good. I'm curious if that scales based on your spell's damage. We need to stop. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time. You've been nothing shy of lovely. Thank you so much for putting out with me. This has been a lot. I was blown away that so many of you are actually wanting to just sit down and talk with me about skill trees and synergies and stuff like that. This is my favorite thing to do when I was young. In school, when I was playing the first couple Borderlands, is come to school and talk to your friends about the plan or the reason for why you think things may work out. And yeah, this was absolutely it for me, and I really appreciate it. Also, I really appreciate everyone else telling me what they thought was going to be the super synergy here. I have seen a lot of cool synergies within like the Stabomancer and all these other things, but there's no time really. I don't want to make this a 5-hour video or something, but I would love to hear them in the comment section down below. Thank you for your time. Also, we stream constantly. We're going to be streaming a ton of course, Wonderland, as well as making videos of it. So if you are excited for that, then hopefully stick around and expect those videos down the pipeline. Thank you again, and also talk to me about this on whenever we stream. I'm always down to talk about anything and everything. Thank you so much, and goodbye.